challenging to acquire. This winter season, it's more important than ever to secure this true form of oil of oregano. Now available in our limited first run at InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.
Now, we've seen a lot of movement throughout the states trying to destroy informed consent, calling it a personal belief exemption. Don't ever let them use that terminology. You have to take the high ground, call it what it is, taking away our informed consent. But that's not the only thing they're doing. They're trying to create registries of people who haven't been vaccinated. They're trying to keep children out of school if they don't have their vaccination record, getting people off of their job, getting them fired, making a condition of employment. Look, they didn't do this with HIV when it first came out, when we didn't know the mechanism for it transferring to people. They didn't segregate people out of their jobs. They didn't kick them out of school. They don't kick kids out of school even when they've been given a live polio vaccine and may be exposed to other children who haven't had a vaccination yet, who haven't developed an immunity to that. But they're using this to roll out a medical tyranny. Just as Alex Jones pointed out yesterday in Texas, there's a bill 538 that has, as part of a medical response, internment camps. It is going to be used to bring in martial law. And we see this from an editorial on the New York Times by Bill Gates. It just came out 2 days ago. How to fight the next epidemic. He says, the Ebola crisis was terrible, but the next time could be much worse. Let me tell you something. The Ebola crisis is not over yet. Back in September, Sierra Leone quarantined 1 million people for 72 hours. They're about to have another 72-hour quarantine. They're going to quarantine 2.5 million people this time. Not 1 million, 2.5. We already have over 10,000 people who have died from this. It's about 50 times larger than the previous larger Ebola outbreak. There's many times more healthcare professionals that have died from this outbreak than the previous greatest Ebola outbreak. There's something fundamentally different about this one. Perhaps there were some gain-of-function experiments that went on with this. Maybe this is a weaponized version. Whatever, they still don't have it under control. He talks about how, as awful as Ebola is, it only spreads through physical contact. By the time patients can infect other people, they're already showing symptoms of the disease, which makes it relatively easy to identify. Well, maybe, maybe not, because it certainly is not under control yet. Even in Guinea, where they said it was under control, we've now seen an uptick in the number of cases in just the last week. And in just the last week, we've had 25 healthcare workers from the US and UK brought back into these countries because of exposure to Ebola. But I think one of the things that concerns me the most is when you look at these gain-of-function experiments that the CDC talks about on their website. And of course, what Bill Gates talks about is that it may be something that is easily transmitted via airborne transmission, like flu. And he talks about, of course, the flu epidemic that everyone is familiar with around World War I, the Spanish flu. We have the most virulent strains of flu that we know being enhanced for gain of function by the CDC and other bioweapon labs in the United States. They admit it on the CDC's website. And they say, listen to the logic of why they would do this. They say that they want to enhance these flu vaccines artificially in the lab, genetically modify them to make them more resistant to treatment, to make them more easily transmittable, because that could happen in nature. And if it happened in nature, they will have the vaccines ready to handle it. What an absurd justification for that. There's practically an infinite number of ways that these things could be modified. It's not going to be necessarily the way that they did it, but they're creating a new threat and the vaccine for that new threat at the same time. And we've already seen the many accidents throughout CDC and associated labs in the United States. The one that's happening, that's ongoing right now in Louisiana with Burkholderia pseudomallei. They don't know how it got out of the lab, and they don't know the extent to the environment that it's escaped to. But they enhance these and then also at the same time create a vaccine. Now listen to what Bill Gates has to say, because his solution, of course, is one of tyranny, big government, global government. He says, we need to invest in disease surveillance. We need a database that's instantly accessible to the relevant organizations with rules requiring countries to share their information. And we need military resources that are ready to respond. And then he goes on to say, the United Nations should empower and fund a global institution to coordinate these efforts. There you go. You can roll out world government with a pandemic, maybe a bird flu that was given enhanced capability at a CDC lab and just happened to escape. But of course, we have to have a global organization to force the countries to do this, to surveil everybody. That's Bill Gates' solution. Now, we've got something coming up in just a few days. We have the National Adult Immunization Plan has been put out for comment. That's been extended for another 3 days. So on Monday, they're going to stop public comment on it. You need to understand where this is coming from. They had an immunization plan that began in 2010 to try to increase the number of people in America that had been vaccinated for all sorts of things. That's why you're seeing all of these vaccines being given out in retail centers, given out at shopping centers, giving out at drugstores, everywhere. They're encouraging people to get shot up with vaccines for everything. Even at McDonald's, of course, they're doing this. But it's not enough for them. So their 10-year plan doesn't look like it's on pace, so now they're going to accelerate it for the final 5 years. So this National Adult Immunization Plan is a 5-year plan to push this on people. And this is the way they introduce it. They say vaccine-preventable diseases take a heavy toll on adults who are 18 years old and older. They say the diminishing function of the aging immune system reduces the immune response to vaccines and underscores the need to develop more effective products for older adults. In other words, when you're 18, your immune system is already aging. And so you got to get those vaccines. They break this down into various age groups and various conditions, and they are looking to get about 90% across the board on most of these vaccinations. Notice in that first category there, they've got pregnant women, and they say right now in 2012, 52% were getting vaccinated for the flu. Pregnant women, 52%. But they're not happy with that, but they don't have a target number for that category yet. But most of the rest of them, it's a 90% target rate. And then finally, in this document, this is a very long document. I'd suggest that you take a look at it. One of the things they said is they have opportunities in a changing policy landscape, and they explicitly talk about Obamacare. They say the changing landscape of medical care and preventative health services as a result of Affordable Care Act implementation will help them to push vaccines on the public. Now, you might ask yourself, why is it that we've never seen any other pharmaceutical products being pushed for universal consumption, mandated for universal consumption? Understand that the pharmaceutical industry has immunity for vaccines. We may not get immunity from diseases, but they have legal immunity from the side effects and the damage that their vaccines do. That's what the vaccine court is there for. So when you look at it from a pure profit standpoint, of course they're going to push vaccines on everything. They announced about a year and a half ago they were going to stop all antibiotic research. They were going to focus exclusively on vaccines. Why is that? Well, there's not an antibiotics court. If they damage people with antibiotics, you can sue them in court for damages. You can get compensation. Not so with vaccines. They control that very carefully. So it's all about profits. It's all about immunity, but it's going to be used for medical tyranny. And you've got people like Bill Gates pushing for a world government to administer his vaccines and his epidemic police. Well, stay with us right after the break. We've got a slew of special reports. We've got a report on DU babies, another one on what's going on the border. Racism is on the menu at Starbucks. And of course, we had that report from Joe Biggs on Operation Jade Helm. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Another major health threat, this one in Toledo, Ohio, where everybody in the entire city has been told not to drink the water.
Ohio's governor declaring a state of emergency.
Did you know that the average person uses about 80 to 100 gallons of water at home every single day? If there's a water emergency, will you be prepared?
Panicked residents forming long lines throughout the day.
We're here at a supermarket in Toledo. You can see the shelves empty where water once was.
To stay safe and healthy during a crisis, you must must have access to safe, clean water. Water which will not be available at your local grocery store.
There's a mad dash on right now to stock up on supplies.
The ProPure Pro 1 G2.0 water filtration system is a must-have for every modern, independently minded household. Protect your family's safety during an emergency. Go to InfoWarsStore.com today to purchase your ProPure Pro 1 G2.0 water filtration system or call 1-888-253-3139.
In the past decade, we have witnessed unparalleled scientific discoveries in the area of health. But no one has put together a formula that focuses directly on brain health, nerve growth factors, and optimizing your cellular energy at the same time. DNA Force is one of the most expensive formulas to produce. Some of the ingredients in DNA Force are $12,000 a kilogram. We are using the coveted, patented, only American source of PQQ, CoQ10, and more. You want the best that's out there at the lowest price anywhere? Well, we're bringing you a total win-win. The ultimate value, cutting-edge, trailblazing game changer that also supports the InfoWar. We have produced a limited run of DNA Force, and it will take up to 12 weeks to produce more once we sell out. Secure your DNA Force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139. DNA Force from InfoWars Life.
Thousands of South by Southwest festival goers are completely unaware that they are under an intense psyop as they make their way through the streets of Austin. What started as a place for bands to get exposure is now a joint mind control operation between corporations who are fighting to stay relevant and hip and the city of Austin, which rakes in millions in tax revenue.
And of course, there's nothing more trendy and hip and independent than General Electric sponsoring a barbecue pit. That's right, GE's Barbecue Research. And of course, throughout this barbecue pit, where General Electric sponsors it and puts their logo everywhere, you have even more compendium advertisement telling you to sign up for more things like Snapchat, where you'll also be hit with Google ads that track your location and steal your passwords, and also go ahead and sign up for their newsletter. Learn more about General Electric. It's cool and trendy because remember, it's all about targeting a new audience for these dying old companies and TV channels that have absolutely no subscriptions, absolutely terrible credibility, and they want you to buy their total garbage.
Here, the blueprint to create and sustain a mindless party culture industry is enabled by thousands of gullible attendees looking for a chance at stardom and the armies of volunteers looking to break into the industry. In order to break people out of their trance, we have focused most of our attacks on the blue chip corporation McDonald's.
Most of the ingredients in the food at McDonald's in America are banned in 19 other countries. And guess what the source is for us knowing about GMOs in your food? McDonald's.com! Yay! Silicone might be good for your girlfriend or wife, but it's not good when you ingest it. Ba-da-ba-ba-boo. I'm not loving it.
Which, in addition to giving away food containing estrogen mimickers, GMOs, and plastic-like cancer-causing chemicals, is subliminally attacking the subconscious mind with images of death, deformed, and diseased children. Here are some of the examples.
They tell you at McDonald's in downtown Austin, they show mutated, dead children with pus pouring out of their eyeballs and welts all over their bodies. Enter here at your own risk and doom. Come and drink from the well. Join us. But we must first warn them. We must first let them know before they have passed the gate.
These are the innocent victims of the Battle of Fallujah. These horrible birth defects and deformities were brought on by the use of depleted uranium bombs and shells dropped by the U.S. government.
Fallujah was bombarded by U.S. Marines in 2004. Iraqi doctors there have complained since 2005 of being overwhelmed by the number of babies with serious birth defects.
Well, don't you think radiated, mutated creatures, humanoids, I mean, that's a great way to advertise McDonald's, isn't it? You know exactly what all those animations looked like, the skulls, the rotten kids, the mutated people. It's the world after a nuclear war with mutants everywhere, and I guess that's part of the McDonald's promotion.
These types of birth defects are now showing up in the children from vets who serve there. But this is not just limited to McDonald's. The CIA has been using art as a weapon since the 1950s in a program called Long Leash. And now that the CIA is openly operating domestically, we can expect more attacks to our mind, body, and soul. McDonald's should be shamed for invoking death